Seong Gi-Hun started as a loser, but what turned this broken man into a deadly one by the end? In this video, we'll explore every step of his downfall, from a desperate gambler to the haunted victor of Squid Game. Debt, grief, regret. But to truly understand player 456, we have to go back to where it all began. Before the games, before the blood and the fear, there was just a little boy, Seong Gi-Hun. He was born on October 31st, 1974, on Halloween, a day when people wear masks and hide who they really are. Maybe that fits because Gi-Hun would spend most of his life hiding how he truly felt. He grew up in Sangmun-dong, a small neighborhood in Seoul, South Korea. His father, gone before memory could form, raised by a single mother, Oh Mal-soon, a devout Buddhist who worked herself to the bone just to put food on the table. Gi-Hun didn't have toys or luxury. He ran through the streets laughing, turning alleys into playgrounds. He smiled all the time, that kind of smile that made people forget how hard life was. Because when you're a kid, you don't need money to be happy. You just need a little love and a little hope. And back then, that was enough. But even the brightest smiles have limits. Light, green light, Dalgona, and their favorite one of all, Squid Game. To them, it was just fun. Running, jumping, laughing, no rules, no pain, no danger, just joy. Gi-Hun revealed just how much those childhood memories meant. As Gi-Hun once said,
"At that moment,
simple, pure, free." He wasn't alone either. His best friend was always by his side. The two were inseparable. Gi-Hun called him Sang-woo-ya, like family. And Sang-woo, he called him Hyung, big brother. They played together, laughed endlessly, and spent their days competing. Got a job at a car company called Dragon Motors. He worked on the assembly line, helping build cars day after day. For 16 years, he stood on that same floor, fixing and they were losing money fast, and without warning, they fired everyone, even Gi-Hun. And violence. They attacked. People were hurt. And right in front of Gi-Hun, one of his co-workers died. He couldn't save him. And at that same moment, across town, Ga-young opened her eyes for the first time. But Gi-Hun wasn't there. He missed it. The first moment of his daughter's life. And he was holding a dying friend instead. After that, the factory shut down. The strike ended in silence. And Gi-Hun walked away with no job, no hope, and a heart full of pain. But life wasn't done with Gi-Hun. In fact, it was just getting started. After the factory closed, Gi-Hun tried to start over. First, he opened a chicken shop, Ga-young's Chicken, the line, Saebyok, Deoksu, Ilnam, Sang-woo. Gi-Hun ran. He slipped, fell hard. The doll turned. He was exposed. But then a hand, Ali Abdul, a stranger, held Gi-Hun still, just as the doll turned away. Together, they ran, crossed the line with from the horror of red light, green light. He doesn't even They thought they escaped the nightmare, but what waited outside was worse than any game. All players are dropped off on the mainland, bruised, confused, and haunted. Gi-Hun, now back in reality, is dumped alongside Saebyok, the same pickpocket who stole his winnings, wasting no time. Twisted game. He cried like a child. The timer buzzes. The game is over. Gi-Hun walks away in silence, tears back in the dormitory. The silence was suffocating. They'd killed the person they trusted most, but one man stood apart from the grief. Cho Sang-woo, unshaken, calm, chewing his food like nothing happened, telling Gi-Hun that he shouldn't be so upset about Il-nam.
he was just an old man you knew for a few days."
But for Gi-Hun, Il-nam had been so much more. A friend, a comfort, a reminder of who he used across the expanse. The panels gleam like ice. No clues, no second chances. Player 096, now at the front, turns to Gi-Hun with fear in his eyes. Gi-Hun can't look at him. He watches as 096 takes a breath, jumps, lands safely on the first panel. But the next jump is a mistake. A sharp crack, a scream, and he vanishes into the void. Gi-Hun flinches as more players step forward and fall. A path glassmaker. 017 steps forward.
Hold on, wait 1 second. I can tell the panels apart.
Calmly identifying tempered glass by the slightest glare, the softest thud. Gi-Hun's heart races. They're going to make it, but with just a few panels left. The lights shut off. Darkness swallows the path. The advantage is gone. 017 hesitates. He can't tell anymore. And Sang-woo does the unthinkable. He shoves him forward. 017 screams as he falls. His skill, his life, gone in a blink. Gi-Hun stares at Sang-woo, horrified. The man who once called him friend now stands without remorse. But the timer is nearly up. There's no time to process. No time to grieve. Gi-Hun takes. The final three sprint to the end. Behind them, the glass bridge explodes. The three survivors return to the dorm. No longer just players, but finalists. Gi-Woo clashed.
You still killed someone. His blood's on your hands.
Sang-woo scoffs.
We have to kill everyone else anyway.
Funeral. Then comes the feast, a long, elegant table. After the last bite, workers cleared the plates, but left behind the steak knives. No words were needed. Everyone understood exactly what they were meant for. They returned to their beds, each pretending to sleep, each gripping steel in trembling hands. Waiting in the thick silence of the night, Gi-Hun rose. He crossed the room slowly. Se-byuk tensed, clutching her knife, but Gi-Hun raised no blade.
I didn't come here to kill you.
He just wanted to talk. They spoke softly, of hope, of her brother, of what they'd do if they survived. Gi-Hun promised to find her family. Se-byuk made him promise something harder, to live, not just survive, but live for those who couldn't. Later, with tears drying on his cheeks, Gi-Hun turned to Sang-woo. He crept closer, knife in hand, shaking, ready to do what needed to be done, but Se-byuk stopped him, barely a whisper now.
Don't do it. That isn't you. You're a good person at heart.
The knife lowered. Gi-Hun stepped back. Then, a soft thud. Blood spilling across the mattress. He ran to her, panicked, screaming, pounded the doors, begged for help.
There's a badly injured girl!
The guards came, but not with a doctor, with a coffin. As they placed her inside, Gi-Hun looked back and saw Sang-woo, drenched in blood, knife in hand, expression unreadable. The rage came instantly. Gi-Hun grabs his knife, lunged, but the guards were faster. They pulled them apart. Only two remain now, Gi-Hun and Sang-woo. Friends once. Now, only one could leave alive, and in that moment, friendship was the heaviest burden of all. Gi-Hun and Sang-woo are marched down the corridor in silence. Same tuxedos, same blood, different men. They stop in front of two massive doors. A manager steps forward, holding a coin, asks them to choose between square or triangle for the coin toss. Sang-woo is left with defense. The guards step forward and swing open the heavy doors, revealing the final arena. The final round was the Squid Game, a game they once played barefoot in the dust, as children, laughing. Now there was no joy, only blood, only death. From outside the grid, Gi-Hun kneels, pretending to tie his shoe, but it's not just the laces he's after. He scoops a handful of dirt, rises slowly, eyes locked on Sang-woo. Then he hops forward, 1 foot only, just like they used to. Childhood rules still apply. Gi-Hun hurls the dirt into his eyes. Sang-woo stumbles back, blinking furiously. Above them, the sky opens. Rain begins to fall, and they lunged. Not just fists and knives. Sang-woo drove a blade into Gi-Hun's thigh, bringing him to the ground. It could have ended there, but Gi-Hun, like a man possessed, bit down on Sang-woo's leg, dragging him into the mud with a howl. He disarmed him, pinning him to the ground. The knife raised, a breath away from the final blow. But Gi-Hun couldn't do it. Not to Sang-woo, not to his friend. He stabbed the ground instead, right beside his throat, and with rain washing over his face, he begged Sang-woo.
Let's go together.
But Sang-woo's answer was silence, grabbed the knife, and plunged it into his own neck. As Sang-woo collapsed, his voice barely audible, he asked Gi-Hun to take care of his mother, and Gi-Hun, wounded, soaked in blood, did the only thing he could. He wept, because in that moment, he didn't win, he simply survived. After winning, Gi-Hun is blindfolded and bound in the back of a sleek black limousine. Across from him sits the unmasked frontman, calm, composed, and cold. He congratulates Gi-Hun with the detachment. Gi-Hun can demand answers. A sharp burst of sleeping gas fills the cabin. His vision fades. He wakes up alone, disoriented, on a city street, no fanfare, no explanation, just a credit card in his mouth, and a stranger's helping hand. Gi-Hun stumbles to an ATM. The machine blinks. The prize money is real. The blood was real. He walks home in a daze, only to be stopped by Sang-woo's mother. She smiles, warm and hopeful, asking if he's seen her son. Gi-Hun says nothing. The guilt chokes him. At home it gets worse. He finds his mother, lifeless on the floor. He doesn't scream, he doesn't cry, he just collapses beside her and holds on to the only person who ever loved him without condition, too broken to speak, too late to make it right. He had survived, but he had lost everything. A year had passed, and Gi-Hun hadn't touched a single one of his prize. He wandered through life like a ghost, heart heavy. Wealth meant nothing, not when it came at the cost of 455 lives. But one day, something strange happened. A flower seller approached him on the street, desperate for a sale. Out of pity, Gi-Hun handed her some money, but as he took the bouquet, he froze. Tucked inside was a Squid Game card with a new message, a new destination, the Sky Building. When he arrived, a hospital bed was waiting, and in it, oh Il-nam, Gi-Hun froze. The man he had mourned was alive, smiling. But the truth was worse than anything he expected. Il-nam admitted it all. He was the mastermind, the creator of the game. Furious, Gi-Hun demanded answers.
Why the hell did you do it?
But Il-nam just smiled and offered him one last bet outside the window. A drunk man lay in the freezing cold. Il-nam pointed at him.
You're hearing bands out there until midnight. I win. If anyone goes to help the drunk before then, in that case, you win.
betting on whether someone would help him before midnight, or if he would simply freeze to death. While the clock ticked, Il-nam confessed. He said he created the games because he was bored.
Everybody felt that there was no joy in their lives anymore. And so, we decided to get together, finally, have some fun.
Because watching desperate people fight for their lives was more thrilling than anything money could buy. But playing alongside Gi-Hun, that reminded him what it meant to feel alive.
And playing with you, I got that chance to feel again.
The clock neared midnight and called for help.
There's someone who cares.
Il-nam lost the bet. Humanity had won. Gi-Hun turned back, but Il-nam was gone.
You saw that you lost.
Eyes closed, a faint smile frozen on his lips. That wasn't the end, just the start of something even more dangerous. After Il-nam's death, Gi-Hun did something no one expected. He got a haircut, dyed his hair bright red, a symbol of everything he'd buried and everything he was becoming. Then he made a quiet stop at the orphanage where Se-byuk's younger brother was staying. He picked the boy up and delivered him to Song-woo's mother, a silent gesture of redemption. Before he left, he handed her a suitcase, stuffed with cash, no explanation, just a bow, and a quiet goodbye. After 1 year, in 2021, Gi-Hun headed to the airport, finally ready to see his daughter again, to fix what little he still could. But fate had other plans. Right before takeoff, everything changed. Gi-Hun steps off the train, making his way to the airport. He's on the phone with his daughter. Suddenly, a loud smack, then a groan. Gi-Hun looks across the station. It's him, the same salesman who recruited him with Dokji, now slapping another desperate man. Gi-Hun sprints across the platform, but the train doors close. The salesman disappears. Too late. Later, at the airport, Gi-Hun is ready to board a plane to the US, ready to finally reunite with his daughter. But something stops him. He dials the number on the card. A voice answers, the front man, warning Gi-Hun to get on that plane and live the life he's earned for his own good. But Gi-Hun had made his choice. He wasn't done, not yet, not after what they did. He walks back, not to escape, but to end it, to hunt the hunters, and winces. Blood runs down his neck. Then, click, a tracking chip planted by the front man to watch his every move. That night, he makes a choice. No more running, using his wealth. He hires private investigators, even his old loan sharks. Their mission, find the recruiter, expose the people behind the game, locate the island. He buys a cheap motel, turns it into a bunker, and still nothing, just shadows and silence. Then one day, in 2024, they saw him. The recruiter, Kim, called Gi-Hun immediately. They followed, but it was the last mistake they'd ever made, like they were nothing, then dragged their bloodied bodies into a hidden room. He tied them up, gagged them, and made them play.
We'll play rock, paper, scissors.
By the rules, and accept whatever came.
If you want to meet the person you were talking about earlier, the key's here in my pocket.
Gi-Hun chose fate. He raised the gun to his own head and pulled the trigger. Click! He survived. The salesman, stunned, couldn't believe what just happened. His pride, his control, shattered. Without a word, he picked up the revolver, pressed it to his own head, pulled the trigger. Barely conscious, eyes filled with terror. Down the hall, another door stood half open. Inside, the recruiter's corpse on the couch. Gi-Hun stood beside it. Revolver still infiltrated the Squid Game. Now, after all this time, they were still chasing the same ghost. Gi-Hun finally revealed the truth.
What I want is to stop the game once and for all.
He wasn't just trying to expose the game, he wanted to destroy it. He asked Junho if he knew who was behind it.
Do you know who he is?
Junho stayed silent even though, deep down, he knew the truth. His own brother was the front man, but he said nothing. Gi-Hun then led him to a locked and preparing. Later, a dentist arrived, quietly replacing one of Gi-Hun's teeth with a tracker. No matter where the game took him, the team would always know his location. Then came the address, left behind by the recruiter. It led them to a lavish party. Gi-Hun and his team entered, cautious, but moments later, it was a trap. Pink guards appeared. Gi-Hun was seized and escorted into a black limousine. Inside, the front man, face to face once again. Gi-Hun didn't beg.
Stop the game once and for all.
He demanded the games be shut down, but the front man didn't flinch. He explained that the games would continue.
If the world doesn't change, the game doesn't end.
As long as the world stayed the same, driven by greed, power, and desperation, Gi-Hun then made one final request.
Let me play the game again.
To return to the games. The frontman agreed, unaware of the truth. Gi-Hun wasn't going back to win, he was going back to burn it all down, from the inside. This time, he didn't return to play by the rules, he returned to shatter them, from the inside out. Gi-Hun wakes up in the familiar dormitory, the same green light. He rushes to the front of the crowd, waving his arms.
Everyone! Everybody, you need to pay attention!
His voice echoes.
If
You move after red light, you're gonna be shot!
Confused stares, laughter, someone mocks him.
That guy's gotta be drunk or something.
Even Young-Bai squints at him. Eyebrows raised, Gi-Hun pleads, voice cracking, eyes wide with terror. But the staff ignores him, and the doll begins to speak. The players inch forward, step by step, as Gi-Hun yells the cues.
Hold still!
And for a while, it works. Everyone's alive. The field is tense, but hopeful, until bang! A player collapses, screams, panic explodes, dozens bolt forward. A chain reaction of chaos.
Hold still!
Gi-Hun pushes through the chaos. Silence, now they believe him. It wasn't just instinct. It was everything Song-woo taught him. The players begin to shift. No more scattered panic. Now they move with intention. Lines form. Shadows overlap. Gi-Hun leads them like a soldier. Every movement timed with precision. He begins guiding others, subtly warning them, pacing their moves. Most make it across. And just like that, Gi-Hun became a popular boy. Soon after, players vote. But things had changed. The desperation had grown deeper. The vote was called, just like before. But this time, most wanted to stay, so the games would continue. History was repeating, but the game wasn't the same anymore, and neither was Gi-Hun. Whispers spread fast. Maybe he really had played these games before. Maybe he knew how to survive. Gi-Hun tells them what he remembered from the last time, that the next game would be Dalgona. People began to follow his lead. Among them were Kang Dae-ho, a hardened ex-marine, and Oh Young-il, quiet but calculating. They stuck close, drawn to Gi-Hun's confidence, but what Gi-Hun didn't know was that Oh Young-il wasn't who he claimed to be. He was the frontman, hiding in plain sight, watching Gi-Hun. Soon the second game began. A brutal six-legged pentathlon. Players had to form teams of 5, bind their legs together, and complete 5 traditional children's games in under 5 minutes. Failure meant death. Gi-Hun's team started strong. Player 222 stepped up for Dakji. She slammed it on her first try. It flipped. Next was Flying Stone. Young-bae took aim. He threw like a pro. Then came Gongi. Dae-ho was fast. He tossed and caught the pebbles like he'd done it 100 times. Then the fourth game, Spinning Top. It didn't go as well. The first throw, fail. The second, fail again. Young-il was getting nervous. He started shouting at himself, hit his own face. Gi-Hun calms him down, reminding him of how much fun he used to have playing the game as a child. Young-il breathes. He picked up the thread, wrapped it slow, focused. Then he threw. The top hit the floor and spun, smooth. And then it was up to Gi-Hun. Gi-Hun kicks the jegi once, twice, 3, 4, then it flies too far. But Young-il shifts his foot, tugging Gi-Hun's leg just in time. The jegi lands. Fifth kick. They sprint, cross the line with 1 second left. But survival didn't soften the mood. When the next vote was cast, more players still chose to stay. Just like before, the hunger for prize money outweighed the fear of dying. 10 minutes before lights out, Gi-Hun and his team quietly began dragging their mattresses and pillows beneath the metal bunks. He explained that in his last game, the dorm turned into a massacre after lights out. Players killing each other for money, not just survival. The prize grows with each death, even between games. Young-il initially scoffed, thinking Gi-Hun was spiraling again. But Gi-Hun's eyes didn't waver. His voice was steady, haunted.
I saw dozens of people murder each other in the middle of the night.
They agreed to take turns on guard duty. Gi-Hun volunteered to stay up first, while the others arranged their shifts. Then came Game 3, Mingle. A number flashed on the screen. Players had only seconds to group up in that exact number and enter the correct room. Anyone left out, or in the wrong group, was executed on the spot. Panic starts to ripple, but Gi-Hun keeps his head.
If they call out a number higher than 5, we grab all the people we need as soon as we can.
The platform stops. The song ends. No hesitation. Hyun-ju sprints towards Seong-yo, who's praying alone at the center. She grabs her, and together, the group rushes into an empty room. Slam. Door shuts just in time. Gi-Hun peers through the slot and freezes. Gunfire. Screams. Outside. 35 players are gunned down where they stood. Inside, silence. Then Seong-yo whispers. Her eyes drift to Junhee's swollen belly, then to Gi-Hun.
You're here for a reason. You were drawn by destiny.
After the bodies are cleared, the survivors return to the platform. The next number booms over the speakers, 4. Gi-Hun immediately steps forward.
It's okay, you're 4, go! Come on!
But before he can stop him, Young-il bolts. Gi-Hun searches the crowd. With seconds left, they sprint to an empty room. Gi-Hun hesitates, still holding the door open, scanning the crowd. Young-bae yanks him inside. The door slams. The round ends. They emerge and scan the crowd. 168 players left. Then, Young-il appears, smiling, alive. Gi-Hun exhales, deeply shaken.
I was worried for a second. Glad you made it.
The third round starts. The number is called 3. Gi-Hun turns to his group. Time is ticking. Then they spot Gyeom-ja standing alone. No time to talk. They rush in, grab her by the arms, and pull her into a room just in time. Round 4 begins. The number is called 6. Gi-Hun and Hyunju quickly decide to team up. 10 players total. Gi-Hun, Jung-bae, Young-il, and Park Young-seok scan the crowd. Time ticking down fast, they spot players 238 and 350. No questions, just nods. They all run and slide into a room just before the door slams shut. The final round begins. 126 players left. The platform spins one last time. The platform stops. 2, the announcer says. Panic erupts. Gi-Hun's eyes dart between his teammates. Who to choose? Young-il grabs Jung-bae and vanishes into the crowd. Jun-hee is pulled away by Myung-gi. Gi-Hun freezes. Then Dae-ho yanks his arm. They sprint, dive into a room. Door slams shut. Gi-Hun survived. So did his teammates. For a brief moment, it felt like maybe, just maybe, they were gaining control. But in the Squid Game, calm always comes before the storm. After Mingle, the vote begins, in reverse order. Gi-Hun is first. He presses X. One by one, the players vote. Most stick to their sides. Then, Jung-bae switches. Cheers ripple through Gi-Hun's group. More players defect. Dae-ho counts under his breath. When the tally nearly ties, Gi-Hun starts to believe. Hope flickers. Only 2 players left, both from Team X. Victory feels certain, until player 002 stuns everyone. She presses O. She had followed Seonyo's belief since Mingle. Blind faith just betrayed Team X. Now, all eyes turn to Young-il. The final vote. Jung-bae becomes fearful about what Young-il.
He scares me a little.
He stops. Too late. Young-il presses X. Cheers erupt, relief, laughter, but the masked manager steps forward.
Clause 3 of the consent form. Should the initial vote result in a tie, the players will vote again.
The final vote tore the players in half. One side desperate to end the games, the other blinded by greed. The tension snapped. Each player receives a foil-wrapped roll of gimbap and a bottle of cola. Tension rises. Voices rise, shouting. An argument explodes across the room. Gi-Hun doesn't speak, just watches. Something's wrong. Then he unwraps his gimbap and stops cold. Next to it, tucked beneath the foil, a metal fork. His heart drops. They weren't just given dinner, they were given weapons. Sometime later, Gi-Hun's worst fear comes true. A fight erupts in the bathroom. Steel forks, screams, blood. Players are killing each other between games. A huge fight broke out. Players attacked each other. 5 people died. Gi-Hun knew it was coming, but something had shifted. Just like before, players realized that every death quickly gathered a small group of players, the ones who had voted to end the games, and proposed a bold plan. Take down the guards, capture the frontman, and destroy the game from the inside. That night, when the lights went out, the room turned into a war again. But Gi-Hun and his team didn't fight. They hid under the beds, waiting for the right moment. But Gi-Hun was about to face his most brutal test. After many players were killed, trapped with the rebels, player 047, shaking with rage and grief, raises his stolen rifle toward Team O, ready to avenge his fallen teammates.
Don't you see what they did? Just look around!
He sees them not as fellow victims, but as killers in waiting, willing to trade lives for prize money, but had experience using guns.
If any of you know how to use a gun, step forward right now!
No one moved. Then Jung-bae stepped in.
But I really don't think we're gonna get another chance to leave this place alive.
He told the others this might be their only chance. Gi-Hun forced the captured manager to take off his mask. Jung-bae was shocked.
Your mom and dad know what you're doing in here, kid?
He looked so young. They didn't waste time.
Now take us to the guy who calls the shots around here.
Smashing through a side door near the bathrooms, the group escaped the dorms and entered the huge, colorful stairway hall. But as they moved upward, soldiers above them opened fire, pinning them down. Hyunju rushed ahead to a higher spot. From Jung-bae would push toward the control room. Young-il hesitated, but nodded. The two raced ahead, reaching a locked security door. They used the dead manager's mask to pass through and jammed it open with a spare MP5. Inside, 2 guards ambushed them, guns ready. But Gi-Hun acted fast as Dae-ho steps out of the dorms. The sound of distant gunfire freezes him. His hands shake. He stands still, paralyzed. When Hyunju radios him, there's no response. Assuming the worst, that Dae-ho has been killed, Hyunju grabs her gun and heads back to get the ammo herself. Time is running out. He gasps for air, barely clinging to life. Without flinching, Young-il grabs his radio and contacts Gi-Hun, pretending he's been hit through the radio. Gi-Hun hears 015's dying groans and assumes the worst. Gi-Hun and Jung-bae had no choice but to surrender, their hands raised as soldiers closed in with rifles aimed. Then came the front man, cold, composed, and carrying the weight of absolute control. He walked up slowly, his M1911 already drawn. Gi-Hun says nothing, just silence.
Now, witness the consequences of your little game.
bracing for the bullet that would end it all. But the Gi-Hun was returned to the dorm, still alive, but not the same. The man who woke up wasn't the rebel, the leader, the fighter. He was hollow, shattered. Everything he believed in, everything he fought for, he watched it die, all on his orders. As guards entered for the next vote, Gi-Hun couldn't focus. He just kept asking himself one thing: why did they keep him alive? Survivor's guilt tore him apart. He screamed at the guards to kill him, begged them, but they refused. The frontman wanted him to continue, to keep playing, to keep suffering, so he could study the aftermath of failure. Gi-Hun was handcuffed to his bed, unable to vote, trapped, broken, drowning in darkness. It got worse. The others mocked him, blamed him for the rebellion, blamed him for the deaths, even thanked him for boosting the prize pool with their corpses. Seong taunted him, whispering that he'd hear the screams of the dead until his own last breath. The old Gi-Hun might have looked away, but this one didn't. He lunged at her throat, only the cuffs saving her life when food arrived. Gi-Hun couldn't get his, but Geum-ja left hers for him. She reminded him he tried to help. It wasn't his fault. Her son quietly added, if anyone was to blame, it was Dae-ho, the one who lied about being a soldier, the one who ran when they needed ammo most. So when Gi-Hun heard the truth, he turned his eyes, sharp, unblinking, on Dae-ho. There he sat, alone, calmly eating his meal, as if he hadn't abandoned everyone, as if their deaths weren't on his hands. From that moment on, Gi-Hun made a silent decision. Dae-ho wasn't just a coward, he was a traitor, and traitors didn't deserve to walk out alive. Gi-Hun didn't sleep, didn't eat, didn't speak. He just watched, all night, eyes locked on Dae-ho, as if willing him to feel the weight of every soul he let die. Then came the next game, hide and seek. Gi-Hun was assigned as a seeker, and to move forward, he had to kill. There was only one target in his mind, only one man who deserved it: Dae-ho. Gi-Hun turned the corner. Fast footsteps echoed ahead. A shadow ran past the end of the hallway. It was him, player 388. Gi-Hun's hand gripped the knife tighter. His heart pounded. He didn't think. He ran. His feet slammed against the floor. He lunged forward, knife raised high, ready to strike, but he stopped. It wasn't 388, it was player 197, a scared man, bloody lip, eyes full of fear. Gi-Hun froze. The hallway went quiet. Then a door creaked open. He turned. There, standing in a small doorway, was player 388, just standing, just watching. No fear, no guilt, only cold, empty eyes. They stared at each other, neither moved. Then, without a word, 388 slipped through the door and vanished. A flicker of who he used to be held him back. Maybe he wasn't the monster the frontman believed he'd become, but mercy is short-lived in hell. Later, following a smear of blood through empty halls, Gi-Hun found him again, cornered behind a rusted door. The two fought like wild animals. Gi-Hun's anger against Dae-ho's fear, guilt versus revenge. Dae-ho begged for his life, but Gi-Hun didn't stop. He grabbed him with both hands and didn't let go. He stared right into his eyes as he choked the life out of him. When it was over, Gi-Hun dropped to his knees. He didn't speak. He just looked at what he'd done. Then, shaking and broken, he picked up a knife, held it to his neck. He didn't want to live anymore, but before the blade touched his skin, bang! A gunshot rang out. The knife flew from his hand. They weren't finished with him yet, back in the dorm. Gi-Hun listened as Geum-ja shared her story. She told him how she had to kill her own son to survive. Her words broke him. She cried and begged him to protect Junhee and her newborn baby. The next morning, the guards came. They carried away Geum-ja's body. She had taken her own life. That was the moment Gi-Hun found a reason to live again, a reason to keep fighting for Junhee's baby, just like before, when his own life had fallen apart. His daughter gave him hope. Now, this baby was his second chance. The baby didn't choose to be born into this nightmare, but Gi-Hun would make sure she could escape it. In the next game, jump rope. Junhee was badly hurt. Her ankle was broken. There was no way she could survive on her own, so Gi-Hun helped her and the baby, just like he once helped others at the start. Gi-Hun holds the baby close. He wraps her in his jacket to keep her warm. Then he steps onto the bridge. One man, one baby's hope, everything on the line. The rope spins fast. The clock is ticking. Gi-Hun watches, waits. Then he jumps, lands safely, jumps again. One more gap. He runs, leaps. He makes it across. He did it. Now he just has to keep his promise. He wasn't just fighting the game anymore. He was fighting monsters in human skin. Player 096 was one of them. He murdered for money. So Gi-Hun didn't hesitate. He smashed his eye and sent him falling. Then the timer ticked down. Seconds left. Gi-Hun turned to run back for Junhee, but she shook her head. She knew the truth. The baby would only survive if he did, so she made the hardest choice. She let go, fell, gone. Gi-Hun stood frozen, heart torn, tears burning. But what Gi-Hun didn't know was that all her pain, all her struggles, now belonged to her baby. The second she died, her baby was made player 222, and with that, 700 million won vanished from the prize pool. The other players noticed, and they turned. Angry, cold, ready to kill the newborn right there and then. But the guards stepped in. No violence was allowed, at least not yet. Of course, this wasn't mercy. It was the front man's plan. Another sick game to twist the knife deeper in Gi-Hun's heart. Another test. Then came a familiar scene. The final feast before the last game. But this time, there was no comfort. The guards announced the rules. Only 3 more players needed to die, and the games would end. That meant Gi-Hun and the baby were already 2 targets. Unless they ended it another way. A vote was called. To end the game or keep going. Gi-Hun cast his vote. X. He wanted out. Enough blood had been spilled. But when the votes were counted, most had picked O. They wanted to finish. The games would continue. That night, the guards came for Gi-Hun. They took him to the frontman's office. Frontman speaks. He tells Gi-Hun the truth. The others have teamed up. They plan to kill him and the baby in the next game. Gi-Hun doesn't flinch. He fires back. A bitter observation about the cruelty of it all. How this was the plan from the start. For the VIP's amusement. The frontman doesn't argue. He simply slides a knife across the table. A choice. A warning. Gi-Hun stares at the knife, then looks up, demanding to know why now? And there, the mask came off. It was Young Il, the man he had trusted, the man who fought by his side, the man who betrayed them all. His real name? Hwang In-ho. Gi-Hun was frozen. He couldn't believe it. Gi-Hun's face twists, rage boiling with betrayal. He grabs the knife. For a second, it seems he might use it, but the frontman reminded him. Even if he died tonight, the game wouldn't stop because killing him would do nothing. He would be replaced in seconds. The Squid Game would live on. If Gi-Hun wanted real change, he had to survive. He had to outlive this nightmare, not just for himself, but for Junhee's baby, the one innocent life left. He also promised if only Gi-Hun and the baby were left. The final game couldn't happen. Gi-Hun said nothing. He just took the knife and walked out. Back in the dorm, he stood over player 100. The knife shook in his hand. One stab, and he could get closer to ending it. But then he remembered Sae-byuk, her quiet voice, her strength, her words.
Mister, don't do it. That isn't you. You're a good person at heart.
Gi-Hun stepped back. He couldn't do it, not like this. Even in a place built on death, he chose to live with honor. The final game begins. Sky Squid Game. 1 rule. Someone must fall each round. Gi-Hun knows he and the baby are the main targets, but he doesn't fight for himself anymore. Only for her. He's accepted his fate. Round 1. Player 125, dead, taken out by 333. Round 2. The group turns on Gi-Hun and the baby. They tie jackets into a rope. 336 grabs the baby. 333 readies a metal rod. Gi-Hun reacts. Knife out, rope sliced. Blade to 336's throat. 333 lunges, hits 336 instead. 336 falls. Dead. Then 333 lowers the rod. He's an ally. Now it's 2 armed men versus 4. The others panic. Offer a fair draw. 333 refuses. Majorities lie. Suddenly 039 is attacked by 100, 203, and 353. They plan to sacrifice him. Gi-Hun says no, suggests a lottery. Fight breaks out. 203 killed by Gi-Hun. 353 dropped by 333. 100 begs. 333 shows no mercy. Pushes him off. Then 039, barely alive. Steps forward. Falls by choice. Round 2 ends. Only 3 left. Gi-Hun, player 333, and a baby too young to understand what it just survived. Player 333, the baby's real father, makes his move. He grabs a long metal rod from the final tower and demands the baby. His plan is cruel. Strand Gi-Hun on the second tower, drop his own child, and win everything. Gi-Hun hands the baby over. But as the bridge begins to retract, he leaps forward. A brutal fight breaks out. Knife versus rod. They struggle, grapple. Both end up hanging off the edge. Player 333 blazer tears. He falls, dead. Gi-Hun barely catches the edge. Heart pounding, knife in hand, he pulls himself up just as the bridge locks into place. But then he notices something chilling. The final round hadn't even begun. No button had been pressed. It wasn't over. For the game to end, one player had to die. Either him or the baby. Gi-Hun walks to the console and presses the button. The countdown begins. Gi-Hun looks at the baby, a child too young to understand, too innocent for this world. He kisses her forehead, slow and soft, then gently lays her down on the platform. He turns to the camera, eyes burning, and with quiet defiance speaks his final truth.
We are not horses. We are humans. And humans are...
He doesn't finish. He doesn't need to. Gi-Hun steps off the edge and falls. A final act of love. A final act of rebellion, leaving only one soul behind. Small, silent, and safe. The winner of the Squid Game, player 222, the baby. But the island wouldn't remain a secret. Its location had been compromised. The frontman initiated the failsafe. Explosives armed. The facility rigged to burn everything, including Gi-Hun's body, leaving nothing behind but smoke and ash. Yet Gi-Hun's sacrifice echoed beyond the island. He never boarded that plane to meet his daughter. Instead, the frontman found her. He delivered the news and her father's last belongings, the winnings, the legacy. In the end, Gi-Hun gave 2 children something he never had, a life free from fear, a world untouched by cruelty. He died so they could live. But do you really know what Squid Game was hiding? The clues were always there, in the walls, in the rules. Click the video to uncover 107 Squid Game facts. It'll change the way you see the games forever.